This is Tommy Kendi, and I am your host at the BS Machine. We are at episode number 75. Welcome, guys, and hope you are enjoying life at the moment. If you're not, that's all on you, isn't it? And it sort of rolls into what we're talking about today, and what we're diving into is how to become an observer of what's actually going on in life, and how to and I guess what the benefits are of being able to become an observer. Also, how to become an observer of what's going on in life and certain things, especially emotions that we feel, because usually emotions are the things that trigger us, and they lead to things that are triggering within us. So when you are an observer, if you've ever done any sort of meditation, if you've ever been to a yoga class, or if you've ever taken up on yourself to do some form of internal or spiritual practice, then you'll know that the person that's guiding the practice, or the teacher, or whatever you want to call them, that they ask you to become aware of the breath, to observe the breath, and just to become aware of certain things going on in the body. And the reason we do that as facilitators and as teachers is because when you become aware, when you observe the breath, and when you observe the body, and when you scan the body from head to toe, basically you're using the body, the physical body, as a vehicle to almost punch you into this present moment. And the reason for that is that it's so important, because when we're in our minds, when we're in the thinking mind, so many things can happen where we don't even realize they're happening. And one of the other things that you might hear, I guess, spiritual people talk about, is this connection between the mind, body, and soul, or spirit. And there actually is a genuine connection with these three aspects of ourselves. And they're three aspects of ourselves. The mind is the thinking mind, where basically everything happens. All the thinking stuff happens. Your mind is your thinking mind. So it's both conscious, unconscious, and that is basically responsible for our beliefs, our thoughts, and our actions. And then we've got the body, which is obviously flesh and skin. It's the physical aspect of ourselves that basically carries us through life. And it allows us to experience the world through our five senses. And we all know what those five senses are. And so when we're experiencing the world through the five senses, we're experiencing them in, I guess, a 3D world, where we're actually physically touching out things in the current reality. And then you've got the soul and the spirit, which is, it's basically this, it's an intangible part of you that, you could also refer to as your essence. And, if people belong to a certain faith, a certain religion, it may be easier for you to connect with that aspect, or that concept of soul. But even those of us that are more, I guess, not connected to a certain religion, but we're just in this whole thing of spirituality and whatnot, even that you might find that just spending time in nature, or spending time doing yoga or meditation or whatever, it sort of brings you into this feeling of essence of yourself. So they're really the three aspects of ourself: the mind, body, and the spirit. And so what we can do when we become observers of what's going on is that the best thing that you could really bring it back to is that any time where you are being triggered by anything, and sometimes it's funny, isn't it? Because there's so many different layers to this, because sometimes we're trying to observe, and then we observe something and we realize something about ourselves, and then we realize that, and then from there we forget to observe. So then we go straight back into being totally asleep. And when you're not observing, really, we are actually totally asleep because we're a victim to the experiences and the things that happen in our reality, and we are basically victims to it because our happiness and our joy and our way of life is directed by the things that happen on the outside. And when they happen on the outside and you don't like it, then things are happening to you, and as they happen to you, they create certain emotions, and then from those emotions, what happens then from there is from those emotions you get triggered if you don't like stuff. And that's where really the hardest place is to become an observer, is by the time you get to being triggered, you're pretty much fucked, because from there you are off. You're going down a rabbit hole you don't want to go down, and it's not going to end in a way that you like. So if we were to practice being observers of ourselves, we'd want to try to become an observer before the actual triggering happens. And so the best place to start, and as we all know, everything is a process. Everything happens in a way where you start and you don't know what you're doing, and you're like, oh yeah, you got it, and then you do more of it, and you become more confident in it, don't we? And being an observer of ourselves, our emotions, and things that trigger us is just exactly the same way. It's exactly the same as you go to school, you go through primary, high school, then you go to uni, and then you learn shit, and then you become something, whether it's whatever you do, you've become that. And we all went to some form of school regardless of when we left, and so you learn shit, and then you realize and whatever. So being an observer is exactly the same thing. And so some people are actually really good at this, and there's also a really fine line between hiding and just hiding from the world and just putting a blanket over everything and just going, okay, cool, that's too scary, I'm not going anywhere, I'm just going to stay in my safe little cave, and actually being an observer. Because when you're hiding, you're basically refusing to see what's actually going on in your life. And when you're refusing to see what's actually going on and the things that trigger you, you can't fucking hide from them, because they'll just keep coming up time and time again. So I wouldn't recommend being a person that hides behind everything. The other form of hiding, which is also a form of not actually experiencing what's going on, is going the opposite thing to hiding, which is basically trying to force shit to happen. And when you're forcing stuff to happen, you're being a manipulator, and you're trying to manipulate the outer world so that you don't get to feel pain, so you don't get to feel discomfort, so you don't get to feel tension. And so these are two different ways that that you might find that you're being a non-observer. However, when we're in the center, when we're centered, and when we're actually observing, you can actually do this through imagination or meditation or whatever. And I actually did this the other day, where you just basically sit, whether it's in a chair, whatever, and in your mind, by being an observer, not getting involved in it, but in your mind, you can imagine a situation going the worst possible way it can go. And you'll find that as an observer of watching this play out, and it's almost like you play it out as a director in a movie, you play it out in the worst possible way that this situation can go, you become an observer of how that would go, and you actually get to feel all the emotions and all the triggers as if it was actually happening. So you can almost know that as you take yourself down this way of a situation outplaying, you can almost catch your triggers before they actually happen. And the other thing you could also do is, if you're in a situation, you could play out that situation where it happens in the best possible way. But either way, it's almost, either way you won't know where it's going to head. You can't predict the future. You can definitely take control of what happens within you. And the reason you can't predict the future is, I know that there's psychics and whatever else, and they claim to predict the future. And there's some incredible psychics and future tellers and fortune tellers and whatever else that are out there. I'm not saying it's a bullshit thing. It's not bullshit. It's full on real. But what these people do is they tune into the present moment, and how the present moment actually is how they play out the next, however, day, week, months, years, whatever, from the present moment. But the best thing about us, about being people that are human beings, is that regardless of how a situation looks right now, we can go within, and we can actually shift and change how the future will look. So that's why there's that it's, I don't even know if it's a saying, but we know in every single situation, in every single, not situation, my bad, in every single moment, we have infinite choices, like literally infinite possibilities in every single moment. Let me give you a very basic example. In this moment right now, I could pick up my microphone, smash it against the wall. In this moment, I could literally sit back on my chair and say nothing for the next half hour, and all you would hear is just blank space, or maybe the aeroplane that's flying over my head, or you whatever, right? There's so many possibilities. I could take this conversation, or I could take this episode into so many different places. I have a choice in this moment of what I'm going to talk about. I have a choice of how I'm going to act. I have a choice of all of it. And that's the beautiful thing. We have infinite choices in every single moment. And from my experience of life, and from my experience of going through this journey of self-awareness and understanding the self, not just with me, but with people that I work with and people that I look up to. When you can become an observer, you immediately become centered. And when you are centered, even in those moments where you're being triggered, you just take a breath and you center yourself, and you're like, okay, and this can happen in a very brief moment. You just take a seat, not a seat, my bad. You just take a step back, and you are observing what's actually going on in the body. You're observing the emotions that are happening in the body. You might even observe that the shoulders are shrugged up, and you're trying to bring the shoulders up because you're all tense or whatever. You let the shoulders go, you let everything go, and you just become an observer of this moment. And when you're an observer, you can connect into your soul, your spirit, which is that intangible part of you. And that is the part that actually, that's where we create from. We create from the soul. And you're either fearing what the soul wants to paint out into the world, or you get involved in it. And all of us are lidden that's not even a word. All of us are driven, which is the word I was looking for. All of us are driven by love and connection. And that is irrelevant of who you are. We're always driven by this thing of love, connection, and harmony. And that's what all of us want to experience. And that should prove to you that the most amazing moments in your life have been not littered. So what's my wording? It's not littered. Your best parts of your life have been surrounded in a space of love, connection, and harmony. And that should prove to us that we're all part of something bigger. Because if we all are wanting love, peace, and harmony and connection, then we're part of something bigger. Because every human being on this planet, that's what they crave for. But when you're craving something, you you can't force it. You can't hide from it. And so this is where it all comes back to be an observer and to bring it back. The way to love, connection, and harmony is through exactly that. We need to inject love. We need to inject harmony. We need to inject joy and fucking peace into our life, and that's how we're gonna get it. And that's how we're going to get to that end thing of feeling connected, feeling harmonious, and feeling immense amounts of love. And so when we become an observer, that's how we center ourselves. We bring ourselves back. You're not trying to force shit. You're not hiding under the blanket. You're bringing yourself back to center. And even breath. You know, when you become aware and you observe the breath, that is connection in itself. Like even right now, as you're listening to my voice, keep listening to my voice. The mind, body, and soul. It's fucking cool, isn't it? Because you can do two things at once. You can actually listen to my voice right now, and also become aware of your breath. Is it shallow? Is it deep? Is it cold? Is it warm? Even if you're driving, like what are you experiencing right now? And observe yourself. And these are the moments, like even set an alarm in your phone, and instead of brainlessly flicking through Instagram 100 times a day, looking at whatever you're looking at, you know, just for a second, like even a minute, bring your observation back to the breath. Bring it back to the breath. And the more you do that, the more you will be able to also observe in those moments of being triggered. And that's the thing, guys. This is what it sort of brings us back to, is that when you look out into, and we're specifically talking about things today around what, you know, things that actually trigger us. And even emotions. I mean, I did a full episode on this, full podcast or episode on this. I think 4 or 5 podcasts back on the emotions and how to sort of be with them. But emotions, they're like birds, just fly, a flock of birds like flying through the body. It's like the emotions come, they hang out for a little bit, and then they go on. So even with things like anger, frustration, jealousy, confusion, all these things, even in those moments when we've taken action and we're like, holy shit, did I just do the right thing? Those things, they come through and they land in the body, those emotions, and they fly on through every single time. They don't stick around. They only stick around for as long as you allow them to be. You can let those emotions go. You can let them go, and they want to move through you. They don't want to stay with you, those yucky emotions. When you're being triggered, it doesn't feel good in the body. You can't fucking fix it. You can't tell other people what to do. You can't try and manipulate shit. Those emotions, they will move through you and things will happen. So and it's also, look, to be honest, it's not about just accepting and bowing your head and going, oh, okay, well, this is what life is then. This is fucked. No, it's not about that. It's about honoring the fact that you are an incredibly powerful, creative human being, and you were put on this earth to experience the most incredible amount of love, the most incredible amount of harmony, the most incredible amount of joy and connection. And you know that whoever is in your life and whoever the fuck is triggering you, they also want that. And whatever their choices are, you don't have a right to look at other people's choices and fucking judge them. And this sort of happened to me over the last couple of weeks, where I actually thought that I was being an observer, but really I wasn't. You know, I observed for a little bit, but then other parts where I was triggered, I totally went off into the fucking down the rabbit hole, which I'm aware of now, and also being triggered. It doesn't mean that you can't stand up and fight for what you believe in, but it's the way you fucking do it. It's the way you do it, and you don't have a right You don't have you don't have a right to tell other people how they're going to live their lives. Let them do it. But all we can know and all we can assume at this stage is that everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to love. Everyone wants harmony. Everyone wants peace. All of us. That's what we all fucking want. Regardless of anyone else's actions or whatever, that's what we all thrive for. That's what fuels the body and the mind and the soul. But really, that's what fuels the soul, and that's our engine. The soul, even though it's an intangible part of us, the soul is our engine. That is what is going to drive us forward. So in these situations, where are we at now with it? What are you thinking now? Like, what's going through your mind right now? Are you actually observing what's going through your mind right now? And as you listen to these words, what are you fucking gonna do? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna maybe change stuff up? Are you gonna maybe have a look at some of your own patterns, and having the knowledge now and the wisdom, which you already knew, not that you realized it from this podcast, but maybe you got a reminder that if everyone in the whole fucking world is just thriving for love, connection, peace, harmony, joy, all these epic things, that if we know that's the fuel for the soul to thrive for every human being, then what does that mean? Does it mean that it's your job to inject love and shit into other people? No, it's fucking not. Your job is just to inject love, peace, harmony into yourself. And the way you do that is just observe how you are in situations. And once you can observe how you are in situations, man, your life is going to take another level up. Like, you're going to level up 20, 30, 100-fold. Because in those moments when you're being triggered, you can go, oh, okay, I'm getting good at this. I'm being triggered. I'm observing that I'm being triggered. Now I know that I have all these different choices at my fingertips. What's the choice I'm choosing to make now that is in line with my fuel of love, connection, and harmony? That is it. And you have all these different opportunities to do that. And the main one, how do we start? Start by, even just doing 30 seconds of noticing your breath. Maybe trying some meditation, even if you've got a great meditation practice. There's a really easy meditation which you can do, and it's so easy. It's basically, in your mind, you inhale the mantra so, and you exhale the mantra hum, and you do it within. You don't have to do it out loud. So you inhale so, exhale hum, and these two mantras, so, inhale, hum, exhale. Deepak Chopra is the guy that made this quite a great tool for out in the world, and basically just means so hum in essence is that we're coming back to our own truth. We're coming back to our own authentic nature. So inhale, hum, exhale. And every time you notice that you start thinking about other shit, you just bring yourself back to the mantra. So hum. So hum. Maybe try that. You can Google it. There'll be a million things on Google or YouTube or whatever that you can bring up. The so hum meditation. Very, very powerful. And so that's the thing. We have the vehicles. We have all the assistance we literally need right at our fingertips. And so if you're, at some stage, if you're still being triggered and you're still being pushed and you're still going down the fucking rabbit hole of these toxic fucking thoughts and they lead into toxic actions, stop it. Like, literally fucking stop it. And you can't use you can't use the excuse of your belief systems, and you can't use the excuse of well, this is just how I do things, or you can't use the excuse of, well, I just don't know how to meditate, or I'm not stretchy enough to do yoga, or whatever your fucking excuse is. You know what it is. You can't use that anymore. If you're listening to episodes like this and you're listening to podcasts like this, then it means that you are something in you, that intangible part of you, that soul, something is pushing you towards a more connected, more loving, more harmonious life. That's all that's going on. So are you going to step up and are you going to listen to that call? And it's a call. Otherwise you would not be hearing these words. It is a call. Your soul is asking of you to fucking step up. It's asking of you to make a change. And what a lot of us don't actually realize, and especially those people that experience the most amount of triggering, the people that experience the most amount of fucking emotional pain, what they don't realize is that most often than not, and I've seen this with my own fucking experience, my own eyes, is I find that the people that are the most in need of this stuff, and they're actually being called towards it, they're actually the people that will make the most impact in this world. The people that look like they're totally fucked and they're totally lost in their belief systems and whatever else, when they click, they're actually the people that are going to make the most impact in this world. They're the people that will make the most incredible shifts, not just within themselves, but within the people around them. And before they know it, they will find themselves in the position, regardless of what industry you work in or regardless of what you do, they will find themselves in a position where they are helping and being of service to other people who are also in need of this stuff. And this is, this goes down, I could probably do a whole other episode on this, but I won't. But this goes down the route of taking responsibility for being a person of influence. And if you're listening to this podcast and if you're listening to this episode, you are 100% a person of influence. You're a person that people are very easily attracted to. People attract to you, and sometimes you might also find yourself in the harshest of conflicts. They don't have to be massive, but it is what it is. This is where it gets exciting, and this is where you can almost look at it like a project. You could look at it like a self project. It's like, you know what? I'm going to try and see what happens if I become the observer and start doing things that supply that fuel to you. And your fuel is love, is connection, is harmony. So if that's your fuel, you have to build that within yourself. Where do you get that fuel from? You get it from yourself. That's where life is at. So look around your life right now. Have a look where there is no love, where there is no connection, where there is no harmony, where there is no peace. Look there and go deeper into that and inject as much love, peace, harmony, and connection as you possibly can. I fucking love you. It was an honor to hang out with you today on this beautiful, beautiful day. And yeah, guys, thank you so much. Well done. If you like this episode, give it a share, give it a like, give it a thumbs up wherever you are, whether on YouTube, Spotify, the Apple Podcast app, or wherever you're listening. I love coming at you every single week, and thank you so much for allowing me to grace your ears. Thank you. And from the bottom of my heart, I wish you and hope that you hear the words of this episode, and as much love, as much harmony, and as much peace and joy to you as you can possibly imagine. Even more, like whatever I just said, double that by infinity, and that's where we should all be at. Love you guys. Have an epic week. Rock on. Hasta la vista, baby.